Hey everyone, my name is Ben Randall. You may or may not know that because I've only been in class, I think, one day this semester. And I wish I could be presenting this in class today. But before I get going with my speech, which is on the Mediterranean diet, and I've been told has been the center of many speech topics, I just wanted to send out a heartfelt thank you to Dr. Suarez, to the class, and just to everybody for being flexible and allowing me the chance to kind of adapt this semester to some pretty unprecedented circumstances regarding that cycling crash. But yeah, without further ado, this is my oral presentation, which will be slightly different from my research presentation next week. And it's a formal persuasive speech on how the Mediterranean diet that we studied in class is more of a lifestyle and not a diet. First off, there are multiple scientifically proven health benefits that we read about all in the Canvas postings from Professor, but also just kind of that I've found in my own research. People who have followed the diet regularly effectively they're reducing their risk of cardiovascular diseases like heart attack risk, chronic conditions like heart disease or high blood pressure. Doctors have even prescribed it to individuals that are kind of dealing with conditions and chronic conditions like this. And it's also prescribed to people with depression and dementia and heart disease. You kind of get the idea. There are so many health benefits to eating this kind of whole food diet and prioritizing healthy fats that it's become something of kind of like a staple in our modern society of throwing it on to illnesses and chronic diseases in the hopes that it can kind of get people back on track. I've also included here that there have been noted reductions in inflammation, in BMI, BMI meaning body mass index levels, and also blood sugar levels. And I'm particularly citing this study that I found on the Mediterranean diet and the incidence of and mortality from coronary heart disease and stroke in women. The main takeaway that I had was there are about 74,000, give or take about 75,000 women from ages 38 to 63 in the nursing school that was studied. And it was all a cohort of female nurses. And they all, some of them had a history of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and some of them didn't. This kind of took place from 1984 to 2004. But probably one of the biggest takeaways from it was, of these women, those who followed this nutritional guide, the Mediterranean diet that is, had a 1/4 or 25% less chance of developing a cardiovascular disease over the course of 12 years. So if you don't need any more science to back that this is definitely a very instrumental nutritional plan, if not a diet, in improving our bodily functions, then there's some evidence for you. Furthermore, there's some anti-aging evidence, which is extremely interesting, that we touched on a little bit in the module that we went over earlier this semester, where there was an interview with a CNN reporter, and I think it was on like the Today Show. And more or less, the reporter pulls out this like Jolly Rancher wrapper, and he starts talking about how Jolly Ranchers are a good I think it was a Jolly Rancher or a candy wrapper. And he's kind of comparing how the structure of that is very similar to a telomere, and gets into the kind of the depths of what a telomere is. But to keep things short, telomeres are kind of like chromosomal objects in our DNA that are very linked to not only our cellular longevity, but our bodily and overall our whole life longevity, meaning that telomeres are very linked to how long we live. A lot of this is kind of new research that's come out within the past, I believe, like 50 or so years. But tying in the Mediterranean diet to it, there are very many antioxidants found, like in this stunning bowl of strawberries that I have on the screen here. They're very highly found in fruits and in vegetables, nuts, turmeric, and olive oil, and other spices that are commonly used, like garlic. And increasing the amount in your intake of these antioxidants is instrumental in actually increasing not only the strength, but the length of telomeres. And if you recall from that video that we watched in class, the longer the length of telomeres, kind of the longer directly is correlated to your lifespan. So thus we can make kind of the conclusion that the Mediterranean diet not only improves our lives and our bodily function, but it helps us live longer. Now, one of my biggest takeaways from the learning that we've done on the Mediterranean diet is that it prioritizes time with healthy patterns over kind of the aesthetic and the reasons that people usually take on diets. This is something that I hit on a little bit more in my research paper, and I'll talk about next week we meet for finals. But it's really kind of an emphasis on process over product, where it's more important preparing your food and taking the time to go out to the garden and look at kind of, oh, I have some cucumbers, I have some garlic, I have some broccoli, and formulating your meal that way, and then taking the time to spend with your family and make that meal come to life. It's a lot bigger than food itself. It's just kind of an overall healthy aspect of life that leads to not only a healthy body, but a very patient, respectful, healthy mind. So I have kind of this Mediterranean diet period, and I'm not really going to go over it because at this point, I'm sure we all know kind of the staples on it. But again, this is emphasizing that process over product. And the main point of my presentation today, that it's more of an eating pattern than a regimented diet. Unlike many other diets, like the ketogenic diet, for example, specific amounts of foods, calories consumed per se, and other nutritional markers, none of these things are emphasized. There's definitely an element of food freedom, if you're familiar, which kind of leads to a much more free-flowing approach to food, and not kind of thinking you should eat at certain times throughout the day, thinking some things are quote unquote bad and some things are quote unquote good. It's very healthy within nutritional and dietitianal circles, and establishing this healthy eating pattern per se over a rigid plan like the ketogenic diet or the DASH diet or other kind of like very restricted diets. Establishing these healthy eating patterns promotes a very healthy relationship with food that allows flexibility and has documented to lower the chance of food-related mental disorders, such as eating disorders, which have become shockingly abundant with the modern tones that we kind of have surrounding diet culture as it is today. Now I'm going to tie in how I have experienced the Mediterranean diet, kind of unknowingly. But for starters, I'm a longtime endurance athlete, started off as a runner, now I'm a triathlete. Still trying the whole cycling thing. Obviously that didn't go too well this semester, but I'm getting into it. And I'm just generally a health conscious individual. I was lucky to grow up in a household where my mom and dad taught me a lot about cooking. They weren't restrictive with what I ate, but they also were very knowledgeable about what good foods do for your mood and for your sleep patterns and for kind of your whole life. And I realized as we studied this throughout the semester that this nutritional model has been very crucial to my own success. I prioritize much of the success, whether that's athletic or academic or just relationships that I have. I prioritize a lot of this to the Mediterranean diet. I joke with my friends this all the time, but I think I eat kind of the same foods every single day. I'm probably eating sweet potatoes every day. I'm always eating walnuts, almonds, chia seeds in my oatmeal every morning. And it's not unnormal for me to have a big bowl of vegetables with some source of like shrimp or some kind of protein source in the evenings. It's kind of my meal pattern that I follow every day, and it's not very rigid. I allow flexibility with it, but it kind of helps me feel my best. And thus my biomarkers, such as kind of like my blood levels, BMI levels, and everything that someone would go into the doctor and get tested for, are all in a very, very healthy range. And my athletic ability has increased dramatically from when I was in high school. Didn't care as much about my nutrition and my diet. For instance, I was about 180 pounds in high school, and now I'm about 140, 150, give or take. and just probably in the best shape of my life. My running ability has improved fantastically. But probably most important of all, my mental clarity has tremendously improved. As I started eating more whole foods and started eliminating some of those processed things from my diet, I realized that I could stay up later working on homework, and I wasn't really driven to go to the pantry and consume these foods that weren't really even meant to be consumed by our bodies, like Cheetos and artificial flavors and Pop Tarts and all of those things that do taste really good, but aren't necessarily the best for our body. But once I made that switch, I found that I had a much deeper focus for journalism and for my own academia. And because of it, I think I'm not only a better athlete, but I think I'm a better person. So in conclusion, the Mediterranean diet has some outstanding health benefits that we talked about, but it's best when someone emphasizes it for the process of it and not the product achieved. Individuals who focus on the elements preached in Spain, Greece, Italy, and all these other countries alongside the Mediterranean Sea, individuals who focus on these elements will see the best results. These elements being respect, patience, moderation, and love for nutrition and family and life. This diet has led me to what I call peak performance as an athlete, and probably the best years of my academic life thus far, and has affirmed my belief that this is much more of a lifestyle than a rigid diet. Thank you.